And it's time for the hot topic of the hour. Republican Congressmen Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise announced yesterday they are officially running for the Speaker of the House job. Meanwhile, former President Trump breaking his silence about the vacant position. Watch.
A lot of people have been calling me about Speaker. All I can say is we'll do whatever's best for the country and for the Republican Party. We have some great people. I just want to say we have some great people.
Would you take the job?
A lot of people have asked me about it. We're leading by like 50 points for president. My focus is totally on that.
Tiana, your thoughts? He wants to run for president. He's running for president.
Yes.
But there's a lot of people in the House who are saying, put Trump in there, give him the gavel.
I think he's busy enough, right? Yeah. And his lead is still wide enough that he wants to defend it, especially going into Super Tuesday, if he's able to still clean up Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. Look, if they made Donald Trump the speaker, they would do the same thing with him that they've done to every other speaker, which is call him a rhino in a matter of 6 months, right? It is the most thankless job in Washington, maybe one of the most thankless jobs in the country, being the Republican Speaker of the House. Look, get someone who can do the investigations, right? This is why I think Jim Jordan is a very viable option, because we got 1 day of the House impeachment inquiry. And we finally have the goods. We finally have the smoking guns showing how Joe Biden personally profited off of Hunter Biden name dealing and doing these international corrupt deals. So Donald Trump should focus on not just running for president, but also fighting against these corrupt criminal investigations, and especially this heinous New York fraud trial, right? And focus on the people who actually enjoy being flagellated in D.C., because, quite frankly, there are not many of them.
Even the Washington Post had an article questioning whether or not this investigation into Trump is actually fair. I mean, you're even hearing from the Washington Post on this, but now House Republicans are denying that evicting former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was out of revenge. Both Pelosi and former House Majority Leader Steny were told to move out of their private offices in the Capitol. After McCarthy was ousted, the offices are reserved for the immediately preceding Speaker. I think that's also an interesting development. Mark, your thoughts on all of this?
Real quick, with regards to the criminal and civil proceedings against Trump, I mean, this sounds like they're trying to confiscate both his wealth and his freedom, which are really the two main pillars of the American dream. They're trying to strip him of those two things. In regards to Nancy Pelosi not having an office, I understand they said this wasn't revenge. I'm sure they're grinning ear to ear as they're doing it. But, I mean, this is a mere formality, right? I mean, that office is only reserved for the former Speaker of the House. She's no longer the former Speaker. That now belongs to Kevin McCarthy. And it's time. And one of the great things I loved about Trump is he ran this country like it was a business, because that's what he did he was a businessman. We need to get back to running this country like it's a business. No business would ever allow their former CEO to maintain an office in the corporate headquarters. That would never happen in a million years.
No, you're right. All of this is just outrageous. Todd, weigh in on this, because you're seeing more two systems of justice, more attacks, and now you've got the Democrats happy about this, unease in the House as they search for a speaker.
And look, I want a balanced budget. I want our government to stop spending money. But at the same time, to your point, Maria, the Democrats are sitting there eating their popcorn while the Republicans are basically shooting themselves in the foot. Now, could the end result be positive? Absolutely. Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise could go in there and really clean up the House. And if that happens, then this was all for good. But right now, they're popping popcorn. One final point to Mark's point on the Trump trial. I have not heard one lawyer talk about whether or not this is a taking. A government cannot just take your property like this. And if it ultimately happens, I want to hear more legal scholars go down that scholarly path. How is this a taking, why it shouldn't happen, and how it can be appealed on that front?
I mean, can you believe that he built his empire in New York, and now they're banning him from operating in New York? And all of this attention, I mean, they are trying to bleed him dry, as you said, of his money. They don't want him on the campaign trail.
100%.
And that might be the most flagrant part about it, just the fact that the law is written so they don't need to prove that he defrauded anyone. He wasn't defrauding the investors. He wasn't defrauding the taxpayers. He wasn't defrauding the state. They can make essentially a tort case when no one was injured.
Well, aren't there auditors here? I mean, there's supposed to be auditors that, make their own assessments of properties. It's ridiculous.
You find me the bank that didn't look out for their interests.
Correct. I mean, they have underwriters that look at that.
They want to take the most money.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if they're basically bullying those people to just sit down and shut up, you know, and so that they don't come out and start. I mean, I want to know what has been said to those people.
Who is the victim in that fraud case?
Yeah.
There is none. There is no victim.
There's no victim.
There's no
Because
victim.
the New York law is written. I mean, again, New York. We now know they have all these garbage laws where there's no one aggrieved. There's no actual victim who's defrauded. New York can just come after him because they want to.
Yeah, and because they get a directive from the White House. Let's not forget the relationship between Tish James and Joe Biden.